Hello and welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast, where we inspire fathers to build the blueprint for the next generation. We are the Thomas Brothers, and I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jared, and today we're having an episode where we look back at 2024 and talk about some of the things we liked, some of the things we didn't like, both personal and just kind of stuff in the news, stories that we liked, things we didn't like. So a little bit of a year in review as we go into this new year, and it'll be fun to look back and see what lessons we learned and what things we liked and look forward to this new year. So let's go ahead and dive in.
All right, let's do it.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day.
You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
No retreat, no surrender.
You can't conceive of what I'm capable of!
There is no tomorrow! There is no tomorrow!
What we do in life, that goes in eternity.
All right. So should we start with maybe things that we liked about last year?
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and share a couple things you liked?
Yeah. So, and we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit, probably between some personal things and then kind of some general world things, I guess. I don't want to say so much political because it could be even more than that. News or whatever else. But I'll kind of kick us off with maybe a personal thing. So this year, and I kind of tried to figure out the best way to say this without like sounding pompous or spoiled or what's the word? Privileged.
Braggadocious. Okay.
Privileged. All right. But
White privileged?
No, not white privileged. But just privileged in general.
Okay.
Everybody has some sort of privilege. But this year we were blessed with a lot of opportunities to go do a lot of things. Whether it was, and I'm more talking like trips, vacations, things like that. We had our Thomas family reunion this year in Georgia. We do that every other year, and so that was a fun week that we all got to spend together. That was really awesome. My wife and I go out to Idaho every summer, where she's from, and we get to spend a lot of time out there. Which that was a trip we went on as well. We got to go to Florida for 2 weeks and spend some time with my sister, who lives in Florida, and her family, which was just awesome. And then my wife and I got to go to Bermuda, and then we went to West Virginia, and it's just, we went camping, and there was just so much, just maybe relationship building time, or there was just a lot of opportunity, a lot of blessings to be able to go and do stuff this year. So for me personally, I was kind of looking back, I scrolled through some pictures, and I almost had like a moment of kind of humility, and it's just like, oh man, like this year really was awesome. Like there was a lot of awesome opportunities that I got to spend time with the people that I love most, and just create some awesome memories. And every year, my wife makes these little picture books. They're called chat books. She makes them for the kids, and we give them to them for Christmas. And basically, it's a book that has a bunch of pictures throughout the whole year of what they did this year. And it's kind of focused specifically on them, right? Whether their soccer teams or their whatever they're doing. And the books were extra thick this year just because there was like so much stuff that we got to do and we wanted to put in there, and to see the kids flipping through these things, I'm like, oh, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that. It's just like, man, I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity that opportunities that we had to do all those things this year, especially, and maybe this is kind of dabbling in some of the bad, especially in a time where there's a lot of people are hurting, right? Inflation is yeah, quote unquote getting under control, and but it's like everything's just astronomically expensive, and it's just we're living in a different world. But that was kind of one of my good things that I threw in there. So,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
about you?
No, that's great. Um, I think one of the good things that I did this year is, I have the philosophy that you're not a tree. If you're not happy with where you're at, then move. And so at the beginning of the year, I took a new job as a director of analytics at a small company, which when you worked at Vanguard, any company is small compared to that. But I just was at Vanguard, and just some of the stuff they do, I just didn't like. They're very, very DE&I focused. That's how they hire. That really rubbed me the wrong way. Some of the other things that rubbed me the wrong way. My manager was just a chump, and I was basically doing my job and his job while making the salary of someone who was not him. And so I was just like, hey, man, I just didn't see a lot of progression or growth in there. And I was like, you know what? I'd like to take a little bit of a break. Man, I was like slammed. I had meetings every 30 minutes from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, almost every day. And I was just like, I just didn't like it. It just was like, I had a great team. I enjoyed managing a team, and that was cool, but I just didn't see a lot of progression, and I didn't really jive with some of the mission of the company. So I decided to leave, and I left in, I think, February of this year. I started a new job at a new company. I get to work from home every day of the week except for one where I get to go in the office. And I don't mind going to the office one day a week. It's fine. But it's been really nice. I've been able to spend a lot of time with my family, go on walks with my wife every morning and every afternoon after lunch. I'm saving like almost an hour commute time, probably an hour and 15 minutes every single day in commute time that I get to spend with my family or do extra work or do whatever. So that's been a cool thing that's happened to me this year that I've really
That's awesome.
liked. What's another one for you?
Yeah. Another one for me, something good that has happened, maybe from a more of a newsworthy standpoint. I was pleased with, obviously 2024 is an election year. I was pleased with the outcome of the election. I felt that obviously the country voted, and I think there's just a lot of people that were just kind of disillusioned with how things were and are currently going. And so I am hopefully maybe not hope, I was going to say I am reluctantly optimistic is the word I was looking for next year, for the next 4 years, right? What is the potential? Are people gonna kind of really get their act together and start working together to get some things accomplished? But the good was that the election went well, and so I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah. I think that was a great plus too this year. I'm excited for all the changes that are coming. I'm excited for Elon Musk's and Vivek Ramaswamy's Doge or Dodge
Department of Governmental Efficiency
to just clean house. I'm excited for RFK Jr. to get in there and make some of our food healthy and update some of these FDA laws that haven't changed since the 60s because of pharmaceutical and other lobbyists that don't want anything to get changed. We have a kind of a food dye allergy in my house, and I think it's insane that we're using these petroleum products, food dyes, in all of our foods, where those things have been banned a long time ago in European countries. I'm like, man, why can't we just get our act together and just stop this stuff. We shouldn't be putting oil-based stuff in our food. So that's I'm excited for that and lots of other things. So one of the other things that I'm excited about is something that happened this year is that Bitcoin broke the 100,000 mark.
Oh yeah,
On December 5th, and then again it rallied up to 106 on December 17th. Right now it's still floating around that high or mid 90s range. It's kind of up and down, but I suspect it will be back up into the hundreds, well into the hundreds, probably in this next year as favorable folks, people who are favorable to cryptocurrency are being put in positions within the government, and also Trump is very pro cryptocurrency, so I think we'll see a lot of improvements with that in lots of surges in values. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah. So what is that? Is that two good ones?
Any
Should
other
we
ones?
should we maybe do a couple of the things we didn't like about the year, and then maybe we'll like end with a couple more good ones.
Yeah, so we don't end on like a
We'll-
negative note. Like this whole world sucks. 2024 is horrible.
we'll do a little current event sandwich.
Okay, so let me start with something I disliked. And this is not personal. This is just a news event. So the whole Trump assassination was just the biggest
Attempt.
Assassination attempt that happened in July of this year, where he got shot in a rally in Pennsylvania. It is just the Secret Service's horrible management of that. It's insane to me that we haven't really ever gotten any answers, that some chump punk 17-year-old kid can best the U.S. Secret Service. It seems very odd and almost like it probably wasn't actually what it seemed to be. He was just like the patsy or the what was the guy that shot Kennedy? Harvey Lee Oswald or something like that. That the fall guy. And since they shot in his dome piece, there was nobody to say otherwise. But the incompetence of the Secret Service, their whole DEI agenda showed itself loud and clear when half of these agents there didn't know what to even do. They're just scrambling and spinning in circles.
Couldn't even reholster their weapons.
They're just like, panicked, Obviously, you would be kind of panicking, but you should be able to keep your cool under a situation like that. They had no idea what they were doing. There was nobody held accountable. The Secret Service director, Kimberly Cheadle, she wasn't fired. She just resigned. The Biden administration didn't fire her. She just resigned. And this was after she said, I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to resign. You probably remember the quote where she said the reason why they didn't have someone up on that roof where that 17-year-old guy got, she said, quote, that building in particular, this was an NBC interview that she did before she went before Congress. She said that particular building has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there that we wouldn't want to put somebody up there on a sloped roof. So, barely sloped barn roof, which
a safety factor for sure.
is a safety factor. So our country's going to be defeated by sloped roofs. And by sloped roof, we're talking basically flat because there was other Secret Service agents on the same exact type of roof. So it's just like so hilariously failed. And, once it's over, we're just kind of like, nobody ever investigated the supposed guy on the water tower. And
it's
so
like
many different things.
Yeah, compare it to what this guy that shot was it United Healthcare CEO?
Yep.
Right? It's like 3 days later, we have all this information, and it's like just floods and floods of information. Oh, he this and that and the other, and he's captured and blah, blah, blah. Which, I mean, that whole thing is questionable in and of itself. But it's like we still have zero information other than like this kid's name of who did this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, that whole guy who shot the CEO, that thing is fishy, man. Like they caught him like 3 days
yeah.
later with all these passports and all this stuff on him. Like the gun that he shot was like, what?
Why
You know,
would he
the-
carry that 4 states
the-
over and keep it in his backpack? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
the guy was like super, super careful about like not bringing his cell phone, not showing his face, and then he just gets caught in the McDonald's, like
yeah.
because someone
Well, and then-
saw him smile. It's just like doesn't even make sense. It's like a planted story. It's like the same thing as like saying, "Oh, look, we found these terrorists." Passports on the street of New York. These are the ones that hijacked those planes. They must have fallen out of the planes. Let's believe that story. And it's like, what? You know?
Well, and then it's like this. The whole. Did you hear the whole story about the lady that called the police to turn the guy in, the McDonald's employee?
Oh, yeah, she wanted to get the ransom, and they're like, "Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
you
she
called
wanted
the
to-
police. You can't get the
You called
ransom."
the wrong hotline. You can't get the ransom. And then McDonald's fired her because she was calling, because she was doing personal business on company time.
Well, you heard what Burger King did, right? They came out with like a tweet that said like, "We're not snitches" or whatever, or at least we're
I
not
saw that.
snitches. Oh man,
Oh, that's funny.
that whole thing is really weird.
Yeah, it's fishy.
But
And it just proves too, like literally the next day or 2 days later, I'll say 2 days later, that guy's job was already posted. The CEO or
CEO's
whatever
job,
of United
care.
Healthcare.
Yep. Well, I just
Already
get someone
posted.
else.
Psh. Yeah, dude, you are just literally just a number. No, just
Just get
post it
someone
again.
else, and we'll just have them do the same thing because the shareholders' value must be maximized. You know.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was kind of that didn't like from this year, and it's kind of been building, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying, but there is such a political divide in our country, and I feel like it just is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like you got the Republicans and you got the Democrats, and everybody just votes party lines all the time. It's like it's almost as like doesn't even, and I'm just so fed up with the and like I said, this has been happening for years, but just the lobbying and the slipping things in bills that's like a 100-page bill, and then now it's a 18,000-page bill after it works its way around the table. And it's like, that's just,
Hey, you got to fund Ukrainians somehow.
yeah. I mean,
If
it's just-
Americans want good roads, they need to send $5 billion to Ukraine.
yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing is I was watching this explanation of why these things get so big. And because, it starts out as one little thing, which is kind of like the main meat of what the bill is supposed to be, like what it's titled around. And then basically it goes from like congressperson to congressperson or the most important congress people that have the sway votes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they say, hey, I've got this bill or whatever. Will you vote yes on it? And then that congressperson will be like, yeah, I'll vote yes on it if you put this in there. And they'll add another, 300-page thing that only really is for their own interests.
Yeah.
Right. Or for the interest of their party or not even just party, but it could be personal
Or
it
their
could be whatever.
state. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And they'll say, okay, yeah, well, if you put this in there, I'll vote yes. And they'll be like, okay. And then it'll go to the next person and they'll say, oh, well, if you put this one in there, then I'll say yes. And then it just kind of goes around. It just collects these like extra riders of extra things that don't have anything to do with the original purpose of that specific theme of the bill.
Yep.
And then it just gets to this massively overinflated, bloated piece of garbage that not even, all this money is going to go out, but no one's ever going to see any of these issues. And two, do you know how many celebrities? Remember during COVID, you could take like this. Was it was it PPE money or whatever it was?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You could get these
PPP or PPP loans or something like that.
yeah, and that you could use that basically for
Employees that
if you had a small business, you could use it for your employees and you could do it forever. And the government forgave a lot of these loans. Well, I was looking through this list. There's this lady that she did this analysis of all of, because I guess it's public record of who received these loans. And she went through this analysis of all these celebrities who received these loans. And it was like, oh, Oprah Winfrey received a $10 million PPP loan um, for to carry the salaries of her gardeners at all of her homes.
Jeez.
Right? Because I guess these people, they probably have all these sub companies and everything else that they can hide all their money from, for tax purposes. And it's just like, I think who was it? It was like George Clooney got $3 million for his housekeeping to continue to pay his housekeepers. And like, there was all of these examples. And it's like, oh yeah, they all got their loans forgiven. It's just like, dude.
Yeah.
So I digress. I'm going way off, but just the political unrest and the confusion that exists is so infuriating. It's just like it's like trying to see underwater at the bottom of the Cooper River or something. It's just like it's just pitch black. You just can't see anything. How can you move forward and progress if you can't see the next step?
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't know. That was kind of something that was really just grinding my gears.
Here's another one that kind of grinds my gears. So you know how Hunter Biden, he was being charged with he pled guilty to tax evasion of $1.4 million, and these are just the things and for lying on a federal form so he could purchase a firearm.
Yeah.
Now, those are probably the tip of the very, very 6 inches of a multi-million-ton iceberg that this guy has done. And, I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's from his laptop, and you're like, how come this guy's not, like, on death row right now? And so Biden, for the longest time, was like, I'm not going to, commit his sentence. I'm not going to pardon him, whatever. And then Joe Biden on December 2nd of this year, he did a sweeping pardon that not only Hunter Biden's convictions in those 2 cases in Delaware and California, but he also any other offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. So
I'm gonna back pardon you for anything that you've done
for basically 10 years.
Yeah.
For 10 years, anything he's done, and it's just like, I guess,
dude, that is so shady.
Yeah. So you get, if can you imagine the amount of trouble you would get in if you lied on a federal form, dude? You'd be in jail. There is absolutely no recourse for a person like you and me to get out of a situation like that. Or, I'm sorry, I didn't pay taxes on $1.4 million. You think that's the only that's just what he got caught on? I mean, you don't think how many millions of dollars did Burisma, the Ukrainian oil company, pay him to then later get billions of dollars back from his dad as president? I mean, come on. It's absolutely insane. And so maybe the lesson here is that it doesn't matter what you've done, just who you know. And, to think that you can no longer say that someone is not above the law, because certainly there are people that are above the law. And that really grinds my gears. I'm just a simple man trying to make a living, trying to figure out my taxes every single year, trying to obey the law, trying to keep between the lines, when I'm driving. And, someone like this, gets away with everything for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'm going to cover the stuff you got caught with and anything that you might have done that you didn't get caught with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I wonder if that's completely blanketed. Like, what if it came out that they or it's like there was like like evidence, strong, proven evidence that he, did something like
I
severely whatever.
I
Like,
think it's
can
like
that be overridden to a certain extent,
I
or
think that pardons like that only cover federal crimes, not state crimes. So if there's a state thing against him, then that would not be able to pardon. They would not be able to pardon that. Only federal crimes. We did a whole episode on pardons before, right?
yeah,
And how originally it was intended to just kind of, move past things or unrighteous. It was a big deal after the Civil War, so that the country could move on, and be united. Like that's kind of the purpose of it. But now it's just kind of like, hey,
yeah,
just pardon all my corrupt friends so that they can continue to be criminals.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That one is
Didn't like that.
didn't like that. So another kind of bad one and this one is I have felt, and this is more personal. I have felt this one kind of brewing the past couple months. But I don't know if the loyal podcasters from the very beginning are remember, but I had some major issues with my back in like 2017 or something like that, 2018. And over the past several months, my back has really started hurting again. I kind of got over it, so I had one. I guess they called it, or they diagnosed it as I had one ruptured disc, and then the disc above and below that ruptured disc were both bulging, and that was in my lower back. And so those were putting pressure on my sciatic nerve, and it was just causing just tons of pain down my leg and everything else. Well, whenever this all started 5 years ago or whatever, it all started with kind of just this weird, numb, kind of dull pain in my left glute. And that's kind of where it started. I was just like, man, I thought maybe I pulled something, and I was trying to do all these glute stretches and everything else. Um, but then it was like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then it kind of just developed into this major, major issue. Well, I would say probably over the past 2 months, I've just been having this like really dull, achy pain in my left glute again. And so I have been getting really kind of nervous. I'm like, oh man, how can I get in front of this? How can I, try to avoid? I was talking to my wife last night, and I was I'm really scared that I don't like this is gonna suck if I have to go through all this all over again.
Yeah.
And I opted out of back surgery 4 years ago because I maybe I chickened out or didn't want to have back surgery. Um, Literally like the day before I called and canceled and said, "Nah, I'm not ready. I'm not going to do it." Um, and I was looking back, I was
they'll
like,
go ahead and replace the disc or something.
no, so they were going to go in. It's actually not that invasive, but still, so they go in and they grind out a part of your disc. They take out a portion to allow more room for the nerve, so that the bulge in the disc material it's pushing out doesn't push as hard. It has more room to fill the space versus just pushing on that nerve. But they have to go in and have to grind out and cut out portions of your vertebrae. And you know, a lot of people have had that. Some people have said it has. Many people said it had helped. Other people have said that it ruined my life and I can never change it. And so I look back on it and I'm just like, man, did I make a mistake in not doing that? That was the same year we had a baby, and it was like a $50,000 surgery that basically we had already met our max out of pocket. And so I was, like, wouldn't have had to pay anything for it from an insurance perspective. But I don't know. So
Have you
hopefully,
ever thought about? Have you ever done any research into like stem cell therapy?
I have, yeah, and actually I called. There's some places around here that do that. Um, it's there are certain things that are actually illegal in the United States that they can't do, but I think what they can harvest your own cells and then do something to them and inject those back into you. But in other countries, you can get like uh, I don't know, other types of things that are maybe more effective. But I did look into it, and the guy was like, yeah, it's not covered by insurance at all, and it was going to be like 9 grand or something like that, and it might or might not work. Um,
Hmm.
so
That's so
I don't
tricky.
know, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully I can. I kind of know what I'm expecting and up against a little bit, so I can prepare a little bit more and hopefully try to strengthen some of those muscles that maybe are getting weak
Hmm.
in my core and in my back and stuff like that. But that's kind of one thing that's just personally just like, ah, man, like
Yeah,
shoot, I
man.
thought I was freaking over this.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, they said the sick man wants the healthy man has a million things that he wants, but the sick man only has one thing that he wants, and that's to get better.
Yep.
That's almost. It feels like it's almost only thing you can concentrate on is just like how can I get this better.
Yeah.
Think about have you considered getting a new mattress?
Yes, actually, that's a whole new a whole new bed setup is actually on our my wife and I's to-do list.
That's what we got for Christmas. That was our Christmas present. We didn't even get a Christmas present for each other really because we got a brand new mattress. First of all, last year we got like a purple mattress, and that lasted like we spent $1,500 on that, and it sucked. Within a year, there was like a super divot, so I was like sleeping in a hole basically. And we literally turned it around, turned it to the side. I literally flipped it over and just slept on the foam back of the mattress. It's not one of the ones you're supposed to flip over, and then that started creating a divot. So we're like, okay, we just got to buy a new mattress. And the mattress industry is just like like the car industry, just like the house industry. They'll charge you an infinite amount because guess what? Financing is available. And if you want to get anything decent, then you have to pay at least, 3 or 4 grand. So we bought a freaking nice setup. It was very expensive. That's why I said that was my wife and I's Christmas present. Probably for the next 4 years. But hey, it's been working so good. It's been working much better. I feel like my back isn't hurting in the morning. I mean, you think about it, you spend half your life on your mattress, so
Yeah.
take the time to invest in it. And it's hard to hear that though. Hopefully, when I took you to jiu-jitsu that one time, that wasn't the impetus of all this stuff. You said you were really sore.
No,
after
it had been. My back did hurt after that, but that's just because I wasn't used to it. But no, it was kind of before that. It was,
yeah.
but
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Any other things that? Let's see. I have one other thing that. Hurricane Helene. That one sucked. That was more of a news thing, but affected a lot of folks in Western North Carolina. An estimated $35 billion in damage. This is about 10% what we send to Ukraine annually. But couldn't send that to us. Those guys need it more than we do, apparently. But lots of devastation. People are still dying from this thing because they're out in tents. They're in the cold. I was listening to, but what has been really good is to see the response. I was listening to something the other day, and there was a charity where a guy just got a couple buddies together to do. It was like right after it happened. He's like, "Hey, let's go fly our helicopters in, and let's drop off supplies or pick people up or whatever." And there were almost like over 5. He just thought it was gonna be like 15 helicopters, of people that would come together. But like over this time frame, there was over 500 different helicopters and helicopter pilots that flew in and took stuff over. And so, what a cool response that there have been, and horrible thing that's really affected a lot of folks in the mountains. It's like a 1,000-year flood. Or even beyond that, even the 1,000-year flood lines. This thing was like 20 feet, or it
was a 10,000-year flood line.
10,000-year flood. Yeah, it was just like crazy.
When I thought it was so interesting that it was like it seemed like the government wasn't doing. It just seemed like they didn't have the resources. I mean, how many helicopters does the United States have? Like, fly in there, like do like more than needs to be done. And then, but I thought it was awesome that it just seemed like they weren't getting that support. But then it seemed like the people really rallied.
Oh yeah, and then
And
of
it's just
course,
like people supporting your fellow men from other states and other areas.
yeah,
It's just like, yeah, let's just go and let's just save people.
that was good. And then you also, of course, you heard about FEMA not going to anybody's houses who had a Trump sign because they deemed it hostile, and
Yep.
so they wouldn't go help anybody who was a Republican. So
Yeah.
that's your government
Yeah,
at work for
yeah,
you.
and I listened to there was a recording of the meeting where the lady had said, "Oh, you'll see on page 3 that it says, to avoid hostile places, so anywhere with the Trump sign, just, go skip to the next house or whatever."
Yeah, and
And
this is
it's
like
just
right
like,
before the election, right? So people
yeah.
do have signs up in their yards and things like that, and then the government is, oh well, don't give it to anybody who we don't like. So
Yeah.
imagine if it was reversed.
Yeah.
So maybe let's go back and talk about some good things. Unless you have
Yeah.
anything more bad things you want to share. You get it out now because we don't want to do it at the end of the podcast.
No, no, I mean, you can always complain about something, right? But I had put on there. I had some pretty hefty issues with my car this year. It was like catalytic converter issues, and I was just chasing this thing down. And then I tried to, cheap out and fix it myself with a cheap catalytic converter that was not super cheap, but it didn't work. So I had to go back and do it again the right way, and I'd paid extra money and whatever else. But I mean, the car has 190,000 miles on it, and you know what? It still gets me from A to B. So it's kind of like, yeah, that sucks, but I still got a car that works great.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's actually it's almost like a negative, but it's like a positive too, because my oldest son, who's 10 years old, like, I've had this cool opportunity to like kind of get into fixing stuff and wrenching around a little bit and explaining, how engines work and this is what that does. And
Yeah.
so maybe that's a good segue into the last couple good things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe I'll share one good thing. One cool thing this year is that I got my blue belt at the beginning of the year for jiu-jitsu. That was kind of fun. But that was the main fun thing that I wanted to highlight is that my 3 oldest boys do jiu-jitsu as well, and it was really fun this past November to do a tournament where all of us got to compete. So me and 3 of my 4 boys, my youngest boy, he's just too small. But it was really cool to just get everybody out there. Everybody had challenging matches. Everybody lost some and everybody won some. Even myself, I challenged myself and did I did nogi when I actually won that one, which was surprising because I don't do nogi a lot. And then I did gi, lost that one. And then I did absolute blue belt, which is all weight classes, all age classes, as long as you're a blue belt. And I got bronze in that one. So I did win once. There was a small bracket, but I did win once against a guy. So, and I held my own in in all the matches that I did. I held my own. I didn't get subbed or anything. We were just pretty locked even the whole time. So I was proud of that and found out things I need to work on. But I was more proud of my kids and just their dedication and to see that fire in them. Each of them did win some medals and it lost as well. So losing with grace, but also, having that dedication in you to go out and fight was really cool. Especially, one of my sons, he did this like really cool rear naked choke on this guy, and the guy flipped him over. And he just held the choke, and he just tapped the guy. That was really cool. And then my youngest son, who's like 5 years old, he was like in Hinogi, he got wiped. But in Gi, he actually, they put him in 3 different divisions because of his age and his size. There's kind of odd divisions. And he absolutely destroyed. He was throwing people around. He had 2 kids run off crying to their parents because he was throwing them around. And so he actually won, I think he won 2 silvers, and 3 golds. And one of the golds, they gave him like a belt instead of a medal. And so he's wearing the belt, and he was walking around, and his stuff was all clanking together, and he was like, yeah, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, look at that kid, and he was like, yeah. Even though he lost, I think he lost 2 times or 3 times for Nogi, but he still got silver medals because he was only the second. It was only 2 people in the division, so he just got tons of medals, and he was walking around. He was on cloud 9. Then my oldest son did pretty good too. He got some good matches in. He lost a couple, but we learned some lessons, and overall it was a really cool experience to all be there and all competing. And I think it was really good for the boys to do that and do the sport. But also, I want you to talk about your son and how great he did at soccer. Man, he's a star soccer player.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. The last kind of the last thing I had was maybe more kind of around family and maybe more focused on my 2 older boys just because they're more active in what they're doing. But yeah, my oldest, he really kind of found his place on the soccer field, and he was scoring like, 2, 3 goals a game. I mean, he was like up there in the top two kids on the field that were just like running it. And we were just, I was really, I mean, obviously it's awesome to see your kid doing really good, but it was really fun to see him like to see things just click. And as a parent, you can yell things from the sideline, and they're trying to learn and play at the same time. But being able to talk to him after a game and be like, "Oh, well, did you see when this happened? This happened. This happened. If you would have done this, then you can get around that kid next time or whatever." And then to see it like click for him, and then to see him do those things.
Yeah.
Like now he's not only listening, but he's not only hearing, but he's listening, and he's applying the things that we're talking to him about. And so his soccer team won the championship, and there's like 14 teams in his age bracket, and so that was really awesome. And then my other son as well, he played soccer too, and he'd been playing for like 5 seasons, and the only goal that he had ever scored was like a penalty kick that he got. And then the last like 5 games of this season, I was coaching him this season. I mean, he scored like 2 goals a game, and it was like there was just a switch that flipped, and then it was like, oh, like who is this kid? Like my wife actually missed a game because she had to go take one of our other kids to something else, and that was the first game that he scored 2 goals. And I was like, hey, sweetheart, he scored 2 goals during the game. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And then she came back the next game, and she was like, he's like a completely different player. I don't know if he like found his aggression or whatever, but or he just maybe just started having more fun with it. So that was really cool. And then that same son, my second son this year, he was baptized as well in our church. And so that was kind of just a cool opportunity to see him kind of spiritually accept maybe a little bit more responsibility, and understand as much as he can as an 8-year-old. But I mean, good year that, and the kids did a Pinewood Derby this year in kind of the younger kids. So it's kids from 8 to 11, boys and girls did a Pinewood Derby, and there's like 40 kids in this Pinewood Derby. And my kids came first and fourth. So
Nice.
my oldest son, he got first place, and my second son, he got fourth place, which he should have got second. But I think the guy who was judging the cars at the end, I think he must have had his eyes closed or something, because he won that race, and so I don't know. I think my son should have gotten. I think they should have gotten the 1 and 2 spots, which would have been cool, which would have been really cool. But
A testament to your craftsmanship.
yeah. I guess we'll take 1 and 4. I guess. But hey, that's good year. Lots of ups, lots and downs, but focus on the positive and going into next year. And Jared and I will do an episode. We always kind of do an episode at the beginning of the year, kind of where we talk about some of our goals and some of the things that we want to kind of that we look forward to in the upcoming year. If you want to hear a little bit about a little bit more about the inner workings of Jared and I's brains and what we think about going into 2025, you can listen to that one as well. But hey, a lot of good stuff to come for sure.
Yes, there's always going to be reasons to complain, but there's the good in life, and it's important to focus on those great things and not to let everything else get you down. I think sometimes it's important though to remember some of the not so good things, because especially some of the things we mentioned, because sometimes history will erase those things. If you, in 20 years, I bet when you look back, they're just going to say, oh, Hurricane Helene was terrible. They won't mention how, the government totally stiffed everybody. They won't mention how the FEMA workers weren't working with Trump, weren't helping Trump voters. You look back in 20 years and say, oh, President Jimmy Carter just died. In 20 years, and probably less than that when Biden dies, nobody's gonna say, yeah, remember when he pardoned his son who was like a drug addict, pedophile and all these other things, a tax evader for his entire life. No one's gonna say that because no one's gonna remember that. So I think in some ways it's important to remember these nuances of history. They'll remember the Trump assassination attempt, but they won't remember how incompetent and how basically the Secret Service let it happen. That will be just, quieted down. And that will be conspiracy theory. And it even already is right now. So I think those nuances of history are important to remember so that you don't ever, ever think that the government wouldn't do that.
Yeah, what is that quote? It's like,
if you thought that... So it's like, what is it? Like, now, kids, what have we learned? The government.
Don't ever think that or whenever someone says, "Oh, the government would never do that,"
yeah,
it's like
they're wrong.
Yeah.
So, but personally, it's been a great year for both of us. I'm happy to hear that. Hoping that 2021 holds.
2025.
2025, man. I don't know what that was. I'm buying a new car this year, and it's a 2021. That's probably where that came from. But hopefully it brings you health in your back and in your bank accounts. And,
yeah, buddy.
And in all the rest. So hopefully everybody has enjoyed this version of the podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate those who listen, and we'd always love to hear your support. We actually don't hear very much from our fans. So send us if you'd like to keep encouraging us, send us a note on Instagram or send us an email to.
And we know there are some fans out there.
Yes, yeah, we do. Our email is a.brothers.creed. Is that right? At gmail.com?
I think it's just a brothers creed.
Oh,
a brothers creed at gmail.com.
Yeah. Or if you want to hear an episode about something, send us an email. And also, please, if you can, leave us a review and a comment if you like our content, and it helps us keep going. And it's always good to just engage with their audience. We actually don't get a lot of engagement, so sometimes Ethan and I are just talking, and we're like, I don't know if anybody's ever going to hear this. I mean, we can see the numbers, but we don't often hear about people that come back to us and say, "Hey, great episode," or "I like this what you said." So it'd be great to hear from you guys.
All right. Well, here's to 2025 and another exciting year for the podcast. So as always, we will sign off and say, let's build that creed together.
Let's do it.